Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast helping your family cruise a little smarter. And I'd like to welcome back to the show today our co-host all the way down in Florida. How you doing today, Christy?
I am well, Steve. How are you? Where are you? Because you are not in Oregon.
I'm in Beantown. I'm in Joe's from the Disney Deciphered podcast town, although I was here a short time, so I didn't reach out to him. I need to one of these days. But what is today, Christy?
Today is the restart of cruising on the Disney Dream after 17 very long months, very long non-cruising months.
Yes, it's August 9th. The Disney Dream set sail today with paying passengers. But before she did that, she's been on a couple different test cruises. And we have a special guest we're bringing back on board today. You like that? On board?
On board. Nice fun.
Yeah, we're bringing back on board today. And I'd like to welcome back to the show the wonderful host of the DCL Cruise Nerd vlog. How are you doing today, Megan?
I'm great, Steve. How are you?
Not too bad. Thank you so much for, it's been fun following along. I'm going to let you introduce what you got to do, but it's been fun following along with you the last 3 days. And that was because why, Megan?
Because I was on a test voyage aboard the beautiful Disney Dream after, like Christy said, 1 year, 4 months, and 23 days since I last cruised aboard the Disney Dream. So it was awesome to be back aboard her. And I was vlogging the whole experience.
This is super exciting. I am so excited we're recording the show, Steve.
Oh, so am I, and thank you so much for coming on so quickly, Megan. As you kind of told us ahead of time, your voice is a little raspy, and that's not the way it normally is because you've been doing so many vlogs and talking to so many people here over the last 3 days.
Oh, yes. And, with vlogging and then people recognizing me and then the crew saying hi. So I had to catch up with everybody. And, there was tears coming, of course, tears of joy, just seeing everyone back on board and seeing the magic back. So thank you for having me, both of y'all having me on the show.
So before we go into just the specifics, and I know you kind of just touched on it right now, what was it like being back on board the Disney Dream? What was that moment like as you stepped on board her?
Before stepping on board, my mom and I were like having to pinch ourselves because we're like, is this weird? Is this real? Is this just a dream? Is this a dream?
Nice
or is this the real dream? That kind of thing. And but when they asked for our family name and welcomed us back aboard with that amazing welcome aboard the Berry family, we were crying our eyes out. It was just amazing. And we felt the magic, and the magic is still there. We were worried that it was going to be different or feel different because of all the protocols, but it was just awesome. It was awesome to be back on board and amazing.
So kind of remind everybody, what cruise number was this for you?
Number 86, actually.
Oh my God. Does it count? Does it count as a cruise number? Yeah.
No.
It was non-revenue.
Yeah. But there was like a few things that they allowed us to have on this particular cruise, but it doesn't count towards the cruises, but altogether 86 cruises.
Wow.
I mean, when you think about how many times we've been sailing, Christy, and the magic that you get when we get on board and have our family's name amounts. And it doesn't even matter how many times you've been on, just that very first time. If it's your first time cruising with Disney Cruise Line, when they announce your family's name, it's just such a special moment. So I could imagine for you and your mom getting on board, Megan, it must have been just, I could imagine a dry eye in the place as you stepped on board.
Oh yeah. And, we saw some crew on board and right there after we got on board to go to our social distancing markers for the little get on show. We saw some of the officers and they were waving, and of course we saw them crying and they made us cry, and just seeing everybody back on board and just being back on the ship with the characters and with the Disney magic for A Beautiful Dream. It was just awesome.
That sounds so fantastic. And I definitely want to hear exactly about what happened at the beginning or when you got on the ship. You mentioned markers, but let's start before that. Did they have you check in like you would have checked in for your own cruise? Like, let's say you were cruising next week. Did you check in the app the same way you would have for any regular cruise?
Right. So we did the online check-in like we normally would. But this time, of course, it was 30 days out prior to the sailing. This time, as being a platinum member, Castaway Club members, they did have us choose a port arrival time. So that was something different, which was fine. And we're boarding group number 2 or 3 on this particular sailing. They did not allow us to come to the terminal, drop off our bags or anything until about 5 minutes till 1 o'clock.
Was your boarding time 1 o'clock?
Yes. Also before that, we had to go to Safe Passage website, which is the third-party vendor that Disney sent out an email about maybe 45 days before, saying that we had to sign up on this particular website. And of course, if you're vaccinated, you can upload your vaccination card. Or if you're not vaccinated, they did have an option of where you can get the PCR test for roughly $100, I think, if I remember correctly.
Did children have to pay for their own PCR test at the port, or this one was different though, because they probably didn't have any children, right?
There was a few kids on board. I think anyone under the age of 12 was excused because, as you probably know, because kids under the age of 12 here in Florida can't get the vaccinations yet. But anyone 12 and older, I think, who have the vaccinations could upload it. And for minors, if I read the Safe Passage website correctly, they could be on an adult's account because they're not over the certain age that they can have their own account.
That makes sense.
But it was pretty easy. And the team was so nice at Safe Passage because we have multiple cruises coming up. So something happened and they were quick to response. They were so nice, and I have nothing but great reviews about them. Once they scan the QR code that you get on the arrival form, that's when you can go into the parking garage. And then there's a few steps in there, which was a little confusing and a little challenging, but it's a learning process for everybody.
Right.
So, and then after that, we parked and then crossed the bridge into the terminal and got checked in. When we got inside, I don't know if anybody's watched my one video about the terminal updates, but right inside they have kind of like TSA little desks. Like before you go to scan your bags, they have new little kiosks where you go up, the cast member will scan the barcode, make sure you did the health questionnaire, which you can do prior to arrival to the terminal. And my dad actually had an issue. Apparently on her screen, it said it had an extra number on his passport, but upstairs it said his name was different. But I triple checked everything because I'm like OCD on that.
So Disney IT was being Disney IT at that particular moment.
Right. And, this is a new system, new everything. So I will have to give Disney an okay that, it's not their fault. This is new to everybody. We just waited in the terminal until they started the boarding process. And it was actually a pretty quick boarding process. They did one, and then maybe 2 minutes later, they asked boarding group 2. And then once we got on board, there were social distancing markers where we watched the show.
Before we get to that, let's just kind of go back just to make sure I get this kind of correct. So this was a 3-day test cruise on the Disney Dream. You guys had 2 days of Castaway Cay for people kind of following along. So you fill out the Safe Passage information. You show up ahead of time. You've got the QR code, which you get after you put all the information in. They double check that as you go to the garage. Once you go to the garage, then you go and have had that done. Then you go to the TSA. They double check your passport and everything else. Go into the new terminal and then wait for your boarding group. Is that kind of how it went?
Yes. So it's similar to before, just a few extra steps with the Safe Passage.
Okay. And was this the new terminal that Disney's been working on? Was there anything different about it?
Yeah, there was actually a lot different. The outside, of course, looks minor different. They took the gate down where you go through if you were dropped off. There's no more preferred parking. So that's gone completely because we were like kind of curious about that, if it's going to be just not open for the test voyage, or is it going to open for, paying passengers, that kind of thing. They're like, no, preferred parking is gone completely. The only changes that they have done in the terminal is seating. Now it's not like the cushions. It's now like in the airport kind of seating.
Yeah, kind of those type of seats.
Yeah. There used to be like where the restrooms are in the terminal. There used to be like 2 different sides where you can go to the restrooms. One side is completely like walled off. And then there's only one side to the desk area where you go over and just get a little piece of paper, like a QR code, because you don't get your key to the world cards anymore prior to getting on board the ship. That is actually going to be at your stateroom. And so you just get a QR code that they scan.
Do we think that's going to be that way where they're going to?
I think for the first several months, possibly, because I've been talking to some people over in the UK, and they said that a lot of the change, they've been lifting a lot of stuff on their cruises since they started back in July. We'll probably see a lot of changes between now and the next couple of months.
Makes sense. So then you guys get back on board. We kind of touched on that. And I know the sail away process is a little bit different as you get on and they've got some social distance markers in the lobby.
I think if I counted correctly, there was about 5 or 6 big circles in the atrium area. And you just stand on that particular circle with your family. You get to enjoy the little welcome aboard show by Captain Minnie and Captain Mickey. And then once you enjoy a little bit of a welcome aboard from the two, there will be a crew member that will come by and say, hey, do you want to go do your muster drill first and then lunch, or vice versa? And that's when were like, we're kind of hungry, so we're going to go enjoy lunch. And then we went to the muster station. It was very easy. We had a few issues with the QR code for lunch, but of course we didn't have our phone on airplane mode or Wi-Fi. So we were like, okay, now we know for next time, make sure your phone's on airplane mode and Wi-Fi in order to do it.
So do you need a QR code to get into lunch? Is that what it is as far as when you check into cabanas, or okay?
No, that part, no. For cabanas, it's a buffet style. They just serve you. But for animators, for any other location on board the ship that is like table service or Cove Cafe, there'll be a QR code at the table.
So you're not checking in with a QR code. It's just to get your menu.
Correct. Yeah. And then the whole menu is on there.
Gotcha. I totally understand. Okay. So you guys,
Sorry.
No. I got you there. I was kind of lost. I am not as tech savvy as other people sometimes. So with the muster drill, that's a little bit of a change. Could you walk everybody how that works, Megan?
And to be honest, like for me and my family, we love this version better. So hopefully they keep this one here for a while. Basically what you do, and you'll see your muster station before you even board the ship, because you'll get a QR code for your phone for your Apple Wallet. So, for example, my station.
Do you have to set up Apple Wallet then before you go? And what about people without iPhones?
So, if you don't have iPhones or Android devices, print the port arrival form, because it'll also have that QR code and your stateroom, your boarding group, and also your muster station. So that's why they say bring a paper version just in case, because they know not everyone is tech savvy nowadays. So that's just a backup just in case. Basically what you do, so like, for example, me and my family, we were Assembly Station J for this particular cruise. We went outside, we went and found our assembly station. We just asked the crew member, hey, we're looking for Assembly Station J. And luckily we were at the right person. And they said, we're right here. And then you'll go into the app and it'll have your reservation up. You hit the Start Now button for the assembly station. Then only one person does this in your entire group, just one person, because apparently they said that they had some issues on the test voyage before. One person does it, and you'll say, everyone's here. I agree, just agreeing to all the terms. And then you have to go and scan the assembly station letter that's up on the wall. Once that, you'll see a video of the muster station. It's definitely different from the one before that you saw in the room. It's kind of like the same setup as the muster drill video in the stateroom that you saw, saying where to go and everything in case of emergency. And then once you watch that, you'll be complete and you can enjoy your vacation.
I absolutely love that. I love that they've kind of changed that around. It was a little bit different on the dream and the fantasy, but boy, the wonder, the magic when you're sometimes, depending upon which way you're facing, out there on deck 4 with the sun beating down on you while you're waiting for people to show up.
Exactly.
I think that's a great change there. Okay, so you get that done. So there's no sail away party. Was that a little bit different since, your sail away is what you get when you get into the atrium?
That is a little bit different. I was trying to, figure out, like, will there be a sail away party ever again. And from my knowledge, they are in the works of it, but they're trying to see how this goes because this is the Disney Dream is setting the example of the U.S. sailings for the Disney ships. So they got to see how it works first before, they take the next step. But it did feel weird not having that particular sail away party. But for now, to be honest, having a little like welcome from the Disney characters on board, like when you first come into the atrium, was actually pretty nice. It was different, but it was actually pretty nice.
So with the test cruise, I assume that Disney picked your cabin for you?
Yes.
And what kind of cabin was your family assigned?
We were actually in a category 4D, D as in Disney, and it was a deluxe family ocean view stateroom with veranda, and we were in stateroom 6592. And that was so spacious, and there's 4 of us, 3 women and a man. That was awesome space.
And were you traveling with your parents and your sister?
Yes, my mom, my dad, and my sister. And my dad was so happy to have that space, and split bath. He's like, as long as I have a split bath, I'm happy.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for just 1 second. How did it work with 4 grown-ups in that cabin? So did you guys feel like you had enough room to move around? Obviously, you know each other and like each other, but you still need privacy at different times because there's grown-ups sharing the space. So how did all that work?
It actually worked out pretty fine with me and my mom and my sister. We were like, okay, we didn't mind like if we bumped into each other or anything like that, but we had that split curtain, kind of divided the room. So 2 of us were on one side, getting changed and everything, helping each other out, while like my mom and dad were on the other side. They were working on their space, getting ready. So it was actually pretty roomy, even though it looks, because I know a lot of people put videos on YouTube of all the staterooms and it looks tiny, but it really wasn't. It's really spacious and we had more than enough room to like walk around. We felt like we were doing waltzes in a way, but in a good way.
Was there anything different, Megan, as far as, with your stateroom attendant? Did they still kind of service twice a day with the turn down service in the evening? Was there anything, did you notice anything different as far as what Disney is doing?
Yes, there was a few things that were different in regards to like the stateroom portion. For the stateroom, they still come in twice a day, once in the morning, once at night, but they're not allowed to come in your stateroom while you're in there. They can only come into your stateroom if you're out because of social distancing and everything like that. Once you're out, they'll go in, and our stateroom hostess, she was actually pretty quick. She was like superwoman. Like she was done in like 10 minutes.
Which apparently was a rule on the Royal Caribbean ship. Like they were talking about that after the fact as well. But if you ever think back, except to maybe say hello to you or to grab your ice bucket or something during the day, when was your stateroom attendant ever in your room while you're there? It's not like they can make the bed while you're standing there going, hey, how are you? Let me talk to you while you make this bed. Like that's awkward. So even though that's an official rule now, I feel like that's what they always did in practice anyway.
Right. The only other thing, and this hasn't anything to do with like the stateroom host or hostess, but when you do room service, they'll come by with a cart. Like, for example, if you order pizza or ice cream or anything like that from the room service, they'll bring it to your stateroom, but on a cart. They'll stand like roughly 6 feet and they'll, say hello to you from a distance. And then you'll have to make sure your mask is on in order to get it. And then you'll grab it and then you go inside and enjoy your day. So that was the only other difference, like when it comes to like stateroom or anything like that, because for those particular crew members could come inside your stateroom while you're there.
Well, before we move on to food, Megan, you kind of talked about your Key to the World card shows up at your stateroom. So kind of where that fish extender fish is. I believe it's a fish on the Fantasy and the Dream, right?
There's
One
seahorses.
side.
On one side, and there's seahorses on the other, right? Okay, so your stateroom card is there. On your Key to the World card, you're going to be able to find out your food information as far as what your dining rotation is. Is that on the app now too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when do you get it?
You can see your dining rotation like once you connect to the Wi-Fi on board the ship. and you get your reservation up and everything. So you can see it there before getting to your stateroom with your key to the world cards.
If there's some changes you wanted to make, is that process still the same as far as going down to whatever restaurant that they have available if you want to make any changes?
Actually, no, that process has actually changed as well. You can still make changes, yes, but it's all through the chat feature on the app, which the only part that was a little bit of it, like confusing part was guest services. But I'll get back to that part later. It was good, but it was just confusing. There was the chat feature that says chat with a crew member. And then from there, it had guest services, dining team, and so on and so forth.
So once you're kind of checked in, you kind of see your schedule. You could chat with a crew member at that point too, if you want to make any changes to your dining plan.
Yes, and they can actually see on their side, from what I've been told, like who they're speaking to, what stateroom, everything like that. And they actually greet you like, oh, hello, Megan.
Who are they?
For the dining team, it's the actual dining.
So you put in there, I want to talk to dining.
Yeah.
Or whatever the other issue is.
Yeah. And then you'll check, you'll talk to the dining team, and then they'll see, okay, they're talking to this person. How can I assist you today? And then if you want to change your rotation, you can say, hey, can I have animators first instead of this? And then it will actually automatically update so quickly on the app. It's like crazy.
I love that. So I could be in line at the Aquadunk with my phone going, hey, I want to do this, and still be having fun.
Correct. Yes. Something else that they updated on the app is how you could pre-reserve your onboard activities and stuff like that before. So now for any activities you want to book while on the cruise, they still have those buttons, the Port Adventures, onboard fun, dining on the app. So you can go there and say, oh, let's add this to our fun.
Oh, so you don't have to go to the shore excursion desk to buy parasailing at Castaway or whatever.
When Christy turns down her cabana, I can go, yes, I do want the Putix cabana.
Exactly.
That will never happen.
All right,
never
Christy.
Turn it down.
Why don't you run with food?
How was the food? Were the menus the same? Sounds like on the Magic they've been the same.
Yes, the menus are the same. And of course, it's with the QR code, and then you just bring it up on the app.
Are there any new dishes?
There was one or two.
Do you remember?
But I didn't order any of them this cruise, but I will do it on my next cruise, which will be Friday. So yeah, I got 4 days left, 3 days.
Oh, that's super exciting.
Yeah, so I just came home to do laundry and then go back on the ship.
Nice.
It was actually pretty good. All the food was amazing. All the food came out hot.
We should note there are less people on your sailing. So yes. We talked prior to the show, prior to us recording, there was 900 people versus the 3,500 or whatever it is, 3,300 typically on the Dream.
Yes.
So I don't know what the exact number is, 3,400. So there are less. So that's just,
that's part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. It can make the kitchen work a little bit better and everybody run a little bit better.
Yes. I heard it's going to be a little bit more than 1,000 starting on these cruises, roughly 1,500 or something like that.
Were the tables spread out? How did that work?
They had the tables spread out. There was a few tables that were close by, but they didn't have anybody there, but they were socially distanced. So it's every other table was a family.
Well, and that works for when they have when there's only a third of the passengers on board. It'll be interesting. We'll have to watch this going forward, how they're going to continue to do that as more and more people are on these ships. So fascinating. Okay. So the food was the same. You got your menus, unless you really requested one in the paper form, but you got it through a QR code. Did they have the allergy information because they used to have an allergy menu? Do they now include that on the?
Yes. They still recommend you put it on your particular reservation, and they'll make sure of that as well, just to make sure. I did see that there was a lot of guests on board my cruise that had allergies because I saw a lot of pink slips going around. So a lot of allergies on board. So they're still doing that.
Well, that's great too that they have the allergy menus now right online, so people can see that ahead of well, not online, but on the QR code.
So the dining experience was kind of what you've had in the past. I love it. How about the food up on deck? Did you try any of that as far as the quick service stuff, or did you go to Powell or Remy at all?
I'm actually going to Palos on this next cruise coming up on the August 13th sailing, so can't really say anything about that yet, unfortunately, because I haven't experienced it yet. But for the quick service locations, now this is something a little different. They now have like a queue line, like the stanchions where you get in a line and it's like, okay, what would you like, pizza or anything like that? You'll still go up to those particular locations where you want to go. And then, of course, they'll give you the food. And I actually got pizza and I also got chicken strips. And it was actually a pretty decent procedure.
So I guess I'm confused. How is it different?
They have stanchions now, and they have social distancing markers where you got to wait
okay,
before you can go up. That's the only difference. But other than that, it's like normal.
You can't be crowding me and looking over my shoulder while I'm trying to get my pizza, Christy.
Listen, that is my dream. I need my space in life. I do not need to be that close to anybody. I'll accept my own child being that close to me. That's basically the only person on the planet I want that close. I am in love with social distancing and wish it didn't already go away in most of the world.
Then we'll touch on Cabanas just real quick. I know that they've kind of changed that. They're going to serve you instead of you serving yourself. They've got people serving you as far as drinks and ice cream. Anything different with Cabanas there, Megan?
Can I just say I'm also a big fan of all that?
Yeah.
Just in case anybody wasn't aware of that already.
They did add sinks, like the hand washing stations. Yay. On the Disney Dream, because as y'all probably know, the Disney Fantasy had those added before she made her debut, but the Disney Dream didn't have it. So that's something that they definitely added, which was a definite plus.
Are there any sinks over by the quick service area?
No, they do have little motion sanitation things, but other than that, no.
Okay. Are they still giving out those wipes? You know how they had like vats of wipes?
No, I did not see them give any of those out. They're like, at least I didn't notice any because they had like so many of the sanitation, like little motion detector ones.
But I think wipes are so much better. Like that was one thing Disney was like doing ahead of everybody by letting you have an actual wipe to wipe your hands in. All right, I'm going to need somebody to do a science experiment on what is better, hand sanitation or hand wipes.
But they did make sure that everybody sanitized their hands and stuff. But when I was doing my little bit of recording of Cabanas, the process in there, they had the social distancing markers where you had to step on the dots, kind of like how the parks had those like markers, and you had to wait and you couldn't skip it. Even like if you went to the restroom outside, you could not skip the sinks because they don't know what you might have touched between the sinks and going in. Which in a way, it was pretty good, that they did that. At that point, you can then go and get your food and then go sit down. And then, of course, they have the plate, make sure that they got everything you want before handing you the plate over the counter.
Well, let's stay on the pool deck since you're up there. Was there anything different as far as the pool deck? Initially, the magic that we're talking about having to book a time up there, and then that kind of went away. Did that process could you just go up to the pool deck and do the aqua duck and whatever you wanted to do while you're
right? You could. There was no virtual queue, at least on this test voyage, and there was like social distancing like markers, but by the lounge chairs and like when the pool deck is closed, so you could watch the fireworks. And then the aqua duck, there's like please wait here kind of thing when you go up in line, which everybody followed. But that was the only thing that was different. No virtual queues or anything like that on board.
Okay. Sticking with like onboard entertainment then, what did you do while you were on board? You were at Castaway Cay for 2 days, so you're kind of busy out there, but you did spend some time on the ship. What kind of stuff did they offer there?
There was so much to do, so little time. We did have 2 Broadway style shows for the test cruise. It was Beauty and the Beast and Disney's Believe. In the theater, the crew members sat you, and they start in the very first row towards the stage and then work their way up.
So they really sat you.
Yeah. And they made sure that there was 2 to 3 seats in between you and the next party.
I'm a big fan of that.
Like I said, every other row was closed.
Were masks required in the theater?
Yes. All indoor locations, mask is required.
So that meant no popcorn and snack eating during the show?
Correct, at least. And of course, it's subject to change at this point. But at this time, yes, there was no popcorn, anything like that. That was actually nice, how they did it. And it didn't feel too crowded. And of course, with 900 people on board, I mean, there's a lot of space, but it didn't feel too quiet, but then it did not feel too overcrowded.
Yeah.
It was like just right.
It didn't feel empty.
Correct.
But it didn't feel overcrowded.
Kind of like the Goldilocks, not too heavy. Not too much, not too.
It was just right.
And then how about like the D Lounge and kind of the adult district too? Did they have like the adult entertainment in the evening and the game shows and stuff like that?
Yeah, they had different, they have some new game shows. Match Your Mate is still there. So if anybody still loves Match Your Mate, it's still there.
I love that show so much.
It was nice to have the distance, but it was still fun to interact with everybody and everything and have drinks. And they did allow you to buy beverages and, of course, Evolution and things like that because, of course, it's a bar and enjoy that kind of thing. And, of course, they had social distance between you and the next party.
So I'm assuming they still have servers kind of going through the pool decks and also during the game shows and stuff?
Yes,
Okay.
They did.
Well, let's talk about fireworks. They are bringing fireworks back. I know that we talked to Sarah, which was going to be a show that comes out after this one, where I think in future cruises or at some point they're going to have 2 fireworks shows where you're going to either pick or they're going to pick for you when you get to go. What do they do for you guys, Megan?
They only had 1 fireworks show, and that was at 10:30. I think because they were trying to see which worked better, and it was actually pretty decent. And they actually, similar to, I forgot to mention this before the Walt Disney Theater, they kind of told you when you're allowed to go, okay, you can go in now, and then they kind of hold and things like that.
So as you're exiting the theater, they kind of just dismiss each row at one at a time as you kind of leave. If that makes sense. So, the thing that I didn't ask, is there pirate night? And what's the theming of the fireworks? It's just kind of oh, come up to the deck and at 10:30 we'll have fireworks.
Yeah, so it's not Pirates Night as of right now. But
so it's doesn't seem to be Pirates Night for any of these cruises in August?
Correct. The fireworks show was called Happily Ever After. It's not like the one in the park, but it's called Happily Ever After.
Well, I like the name.
Yes, you can't go wrong with the name.
Was there a pre-show to it, or did it just kind of start off with some music and some fireworks?
Music, fireworks, and then they had a little dance party. Not too long of it, but they did have a little dance party afterwards. Kind of like how they do Pirates Night, where they have a DJ, pirate DJ or something like that. It's similar to that, but just more family-friendly themed, or I guess princess and other type of music.
And it was after the fireworks.
Yes.
So at 10:30, they just started shooting off fireworks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting. All right. Well, anything else on board before we turn to Castaway Cay?
The only difference on Castaway Cay, besides the food, is that you have to have a mask on in the food location areas, inside the stores, bathrooms, and on the tram. And they had a virtual queue. So if you go off early, they have a virtual queue. But
how did you get on the virtual queue? When did they start that? How did that process go?
So it's different on the 2 Castaway Cay days. So one day it was started at 8:30, the other one was 7:30. Once that opens up, kind of like when you're waiting for your online check-in to open up, if you had to wait for it to open up for 7:30, 8:30. And then you join the virtual queue and it'll tell you, okay, you are number 6 in line. And then once that number 6 is at the beginning, it'll then tell you, okay, you can get on shore between 11:45 and 12.
Would it have been that late?
No, I'm just giving a time, for example, okay, this is the time that you can get on shore.
Say you're like Christy, you're down on the treadmill, you're joining the virtual queue, and they say, hey, you can leave now, but you're still got another 8 miles to go on the treadmill run that you're doing. Could you go past that time?
I think so. They didn't really have any issue with that because we went a little late on the second day. We were close to our end of window time, but they were okay with it. Yeah, they didn't say, oh, you can't come off now because you missed your time. They weren't strict with it.
It's probably not them being quite so strict, and I don't want to give anybody the idea that they can jump in line and just go whenever they want to, but it's probably just an exercise of trying to distance people out as they leave the ship. Yeah,
exactly.
So what do you guys like to do in Castaway Key? I looked at it. We just booked our stuff for November last night, and they've got some things are missing, but most stuff is still available. And actually, they've added some things in Castaway Key. What do you guys like to do, Megan?
Well, I like to do the 5K. Now, instead of like signing up at guest services or online, you just go do it on your own. But then after you finish it, you go and let someone know that you did the 5K, and then they send you the medal.
Wait, they send you the
They'll-
medal?
Like to your stateroom.
Oh, okay.
Some kind of contact thing. That is still new to me. So on this next cruise, I think I'm going to be doing the 5K. So
So you can figure out more information.
yeah, I'm going to figure out more information because a lot of this is new. A lot of this is still confusing to a lot of us. And then we like to go to Serenity Bay. We like to do the bicycles. That's something that we like to do, and go to the tower and enjoy the view of the Disney ship in the distance there. So we like to rent the bicycles and the tubes and floats. There was one port adventure on the glass bottom boat that we liked at Castaway. So that was something else that we not do every time, but we do every once in a while just to see the sea life.
Yeah, I did notice that now because of all of the stops are double Castaway or double dip Castaway stops, and at least through August, you can book back-to-back things. So if you want the bike both days, you can get the bike twice, or you get snorkeling twice. So you can, instead of having to book it individually every single day, you can do that right now on the menu, which is kind of cool.
Is your cruise a double dip?
No. And I will throw out there too. So like our stops in Nassau, and if you go on Disney Cruise Line's website and look at like the Nassau Port Adventures, there's probably like 50 different things. But when I booked last night, none of the Atlantis stuff was open. So you couldn't book anything in Atlantis. And there's probably, I think, only like 6 or 7 things that you could book as far as port adventures with Disney Cruise Line right now. And my guess is that could change between now and November, but just kind of as an FYI.
Yeah, exactly. And it was nice to have like the 2 days of 2 day of bicycles or 2 days of tubes and floats. And I noticed that it wasn't much difference in price. Like it was $16 for 2 days compared to $13 for 1 day.
Well, yeah, at that point, you might as well
Do the 2 days.
force yourself to ride a bike a second time.
Exactly.
So, and you had mentioned earlier that the dining experience was a little bit different at Castaway. What was different about it?
So you would have to have your mask on, even though it's
Yay.
outside. They'll have the plate, and you just go along and tell them what you would like. When you went to go get your hamburgers and stuff like that, they'll pass the plate around to the other crew member, and then you tell them what you want, and then to the desserts, and if you want any of the desserts like cookies, the bread, anything like that, and then they'll put it on a tray and then hand you the tray at the end after you finish. So that's only difference. And then, of course, the drinks, you would have to ask the crew member for whatever type of drink. They can't take your Tervis cup anymore. What they did for me, at least, is I kept my Tervis cup with me, and they kind of guesstimated how much of the drink would go in the small cups. So it would take 2 waters to fill up my Tervis cup, which is that large one, which is nice. So they just poured it over. So that was good. But other than that, not much else. The food was great.
It must have been nice to not only be back in the dream, but to be back on Castaway Key for 2 days, Megan.
Yes.
Huh?
Yes. Being back in Neverland and forget about reality.
I love it.
Sounds like a dream.
Yes, it does.
Look I can be punny too.
You can. I love it.
So a couple of questions that I came up with, which I'm surprised Steve didn't come up with this. The gym. So he talked about how I'm running 8 miles on a cruise ship treadmill, which is never happening. However, if I did want to run 3 miles on the treadmill, was the gym open?
Yes. And there was 2 different times you can go each day. There was a set of hours for the vaccinated guests.
Huh.
And this is the only time that you would physically have to have your vaccination card if you were vaccinated. And then there was the unvaccinated hours. Now, since me and my family we were vaccinated, we didn't go to unvaccinated hours. So I do not know yet that process. But when I get back on board, I'll ask and ask them how that process works.
Did you have to wear your mask within the gym?
Within the gym, yes. And then I think once you got on the treadmill and stuff, I think they did allow you to take the mask off.
Okay.
Just because you're working out.
And then did they keep the treadmills? Did they keep one blank empty between the
Yes.
2 people or whatever? Okay.
Yes. they did.
Okay. That's kind of cool.
Well, that's the first time I've heard talk about vaccinated versus not vaccinated. Was there any other points during the cruise, Megan, where they distinguished whether if you're vaccinated, you could do something versus if you weren't vaccinated, you couldn't?
That was the only area. Other than that, they mix and mingled everybody.
Okay. Well, how was the crew overall? Happy to see you?
Oh my God, they were so happy. And they like I said earlier, there was some crew that when they saw us, they were crying, and then some were like jumping for joy. The energy was there, and they were so happy to have people back on board.
Couple other questions. You said earlier guest services interacting with them was weird. So did you have to do that through the app as well?
Yeah. So it was a little confusing because like if you want to go up and like charge your gift card or anything like that, you would have to make an appointment first before going up there. Yeah.
And you make the appointment through the app?
Through the app. But other than that, if you just have like a general question or anything like that, you can use the chat feature and you can talk to guest services that way.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. So that was easy.
The internet. Did the internet change at all during this 17-month shutdown? Are we still buying megabytes?
Yes. Still buying, and it's the same prices. They do allow you to text, like, for example, we text my sister back home, my other sister. And as long as they have like iMessaging and you have iMessaging and Bluetooth is on and everything, that part is free. But other than that, you still got to pay for internet.
By the megabyte. Okay. That was it. All my questions, Steve.
I think you hit everything there too. Well, as your cruise comes to an end, Megan, and you guys head back to Port Canaveral, and in the past, the night before, your stateroom host would come through and get your luggage. If you wanted to have luggage that was taken off board, we tend to just bring all our stuff off board with us. Was there anything different in the disembarkation process?
90% of it was the same. So like your luggage, the express walk-off, all that portion was the same. The other 10% is the only difference. For example, if you got the luggage tag that is Donald or Ariel or anything like that, at least on our cruise, of course, it is subject to change. So just a heads up there. So started around 8:00, they started calling the different luggage tags. So let's say, Steve, like you and your family was in Ariel. They would say, at this time, people with luggage tag Ariel can start disembarking. And then if Christy was in Goofy with the Goofy luggage tag, they'll say, okay, at this time, everyone with luggage tags with Ariel and Goofy can start disembarking. So it was that process. So that was the only difference that they had.
Better.
It was actually really nice. I mean, obviously, I know it was less crowded on our voyage, but it was still nice regardless because you don't have that line that's going all around by the shops, up the stairs, up to deck 11 and all that. So
I think we were back at Animator's Palette when we got along the line.
Wow.
So, and then once you guys get off, as far as going back to the parking garage, getting your car, that was all pretty the same.
Yeah, that was pretty much the same.
Okay. Yeah. Well, awesome. I'm so excited that you guys were able to go on this cruise and kind of experience it. I thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experiences with our listeners, with your listeners who listen to our show as well. I really do appreciate it, Megan.
Oh, absolutely, Steve and Christy. Thank y'all both for taking this time to invite me back on and to talk to both of y'all's smiling faces. I mean, I could feel y'all's energy and everything.
I know.
This conversation was a problem though, Steve.
Because
now I need to get on the Dream even quicker. I don't have a cruise on the Dream booked until next year, and that just has to change.
Well, Christy, I might have some room in my luggage if you want to sneak in.
Can I crawl in?
Yes, you can. Because I have that Mickey Mouse luggage, so I have plenty of room. So just sneak in.
I'm coming. You've invited me. I hate to tell you, but I actually take people up on their invitation. This is why Steve and I are still together 4 years later.
Yeah, I know. Hey, you want to do a podcast with me? Yeah. Here we are.
I'm sure I invited myself first, but then you just never told me I had to leave. So don't invite me over to your house ever or let me come in because I may never leave.
Well, what's next for you, Megan? I know you talked about you guys, you got home to do your laundry, get back on another cruise. What's next for you?
I got the August 13th sailing, and then I got the, Christy, don't hate me, but I got the August 20th booked as well. Well, Well, I had a lot of future cruise credit from my Greece cruise because they gave us so much.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I had to take advantage of it. After that, September 3rd through the 6th, a back-to-back sailing. And then after that, we're going to go see the Disney Fantasy, see how she's doing. And then in November, and then also in October, I skipped them Disney Magic. Sorry, crew. We're going to go see the Disney Magic when she comes back from across the pond. So we're going to see how she does over here. But they've already been doing so awesome over in the UK. So I have no doubt that they're going to do awesome over here.
I love it.
And of course, laundry in between those two and doing vlogs and on DCL Cruise Nerd on YouTube and try to post all my photos and stuff on Twitter and Instagram and try to keep everybody up to date of the changes.
Yeah, I love it. And I want to give you a shout out about that too. If you're not following Megan on DCL Cruise Nerd on her YouTube channel, you need to do that because she's got just some amazing videos, kind of keeping up to date. Every time some new information comes out with Disney Cruise Line, you're kind of one of my go-to vlogs to watch and listen to, keep everybody on our podcast updated with what's going on as well. So I want to give you a huge shout out for what you do. And if people want to follow along, how's the easiest way for them to follow along with you, Megan?
Well, the easiest is going to be on YouTube because that's where I do most of my stuff. But I try to do on Twitter. That's my second go-to. The other easiest way. And then Instagram. So Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram.
And if you're on board any Disney Cruise Line ship, she's probably on board with you too. So you can follow up with her
especially with that lineup.
She's probably in front of you on the aqueduct.
Exactly.
My goodness.
And if you want to say hi, and you see me, with my camera, I'm probably, tripping over my own 2 feet. But other than that, if you ask a crew member, they're probably saying, hey, where's Megan? They'll probably point you in the right direction.
I love it. Well, anything, Christy, before we get out of here? Any other final thoughts?
No, just thank you for taking us on that journey with you. It was really nice.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for both of y'all for coming along with me.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, Megan, as far as Disney Cruise Line goes, getting back sailing? You felt comfortable the whole time sailing with everybody? And okay, great.
With the masks and everything. And I know a lot of people are not comfortable, which is fine, but it's a learning process for DCL. It's a learning process for the crew. So it's a new experience for everybody on the ship. I did see, a lot of different points of view, but it's a learning process for everybody. Hopefully everyone gets to enjoy some part of the ship sometime in the near future.
Well, I'll say if you're heading out there soon, I appreciate all the information you provided our listeners. And if you're not following Megan over at DCL Cruise Nerd on her vlog over at YouTube, make sure you do so. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, follow along with all her fun and adventures. So thanks again, Megan, for coming on. Have a great time back on the Disney Dream, Disney Fantasy, Disney Magic, and hopefully the Disney Wonder as well. And I hope to catch up with you sometime soon on board the ships.
Absolutely. And I'll see y'all real soon on board.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show today. Once again, I really want to thank Megan for coming on and sharing her experiences as she sailed aboard the Disney Dream in their final test cruise before the Disney Dream started sailing on August 9th. Again, if you aren't following Megan over on YouTube and through her Instagram and Twitter feed over at DCL Cruise Nerd, I'd encourage you to go over and do that. She's got a ton of videos already up featuring her experiences from this test cruise, so you can follow along all the action and see it in person as well. Well, as we speak, the Disney Dream is at Castaway Cay, and we have a couple listeners on board who have agreed to come on after they get back to share their experiences, so look for those episodes coming soon. Well, if you've enjoyed this episode and some of our other ones, we sure would appreciate it if you know somebody else who would enjoy it, if you'd pass it on to them. That helps us get the word out about our podcast and the Disney cruising community, and just the Disney community in general. And if you have time, we sure would appreciate it if you'd go over to iTunes and leave us a review there as well. We want to give a huge shout out to our Patreon supporters. Each and every week they help bring this show to you. We do appreciate all that our Patreon supporters do. If you'd like to find out more about our Patreon program, you can go over to patreon.com/DCL podcast and find out all the information there. Well, as summer's starting to wind down, on behalf of myself, Steve, Christy, and Chris, if you and your family are heading out on a vacation, we just want to wish you all the best. Be well, travel safe, and we look forward to seeing you next time on the next episode of the DCL Podcast.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.